I'm Elena, 38 years old, though I often hear I don't look a day over 30. I chalk that up to good skincare and an active lifestyle, or maybe it's the students at my school who keep me feeling young. Being a child psychologist at a public high school in Portland, I've learned to blend empathy with structure, warmth with authority. Teenagers can sniff out inauthenticity faster than any adult, and over the years, I've become someone they trust. They open up to me about fears, secrets, heartbreaks, and sometimes things their own parents never hear. It helps that I don't look or act like what they expect. I wear jeans and sneakers, occasionally a leather jacket. My hair's always done, my nails usually polished. I understand their music, their slang, sometimes better than I'd like to admit. But what they don't see is the quiet ache I carry home each day. My husband, Andrew, is 50 now, and the man I married 6 years ago feels like a memory more than a presence. He was once vibrant, outdoorsy, spontaneous. Then came the accident, a hiking trip gone wrong, and a back injury that altered everything. He walks slower now, with pain masked behind clenched teeth and long silences. He avoids crowds, avoids laughter, avoids me. I tried. Lord, I tried. Weekend getaways, date nights, massages, even therapy. But it's like he's faded from the inside out. And here I am, still young, still full of energy, still wanting more from life than dinners eaten in silence and separate beds. And then there's my son, Mason, 17, all broad shoulders and restless energy. In the past year, his voice deepened into something rough and commanding, the kind of voice that makes you turn around without realizing why. He's already taller than me, a whole head now. He's on the track team, and his form has caught more than one pair of eyes. Girls hover around him at every school event, giggling in the corners, peeking from locker rows. I see them because I notice everything. And sometimes, just sometimes, I catch them looking at him the way I used to look at Andrew. He's beautiful, my boy. I feel guilty admitting it. What kind of mother thinks that? But it's not a forbidden thought, not quite. It's admiration, awe at how fast he's grown, at the man he's becoming, the way he holds doors for me, the way he notices when I look tired, the way his voice softens when he says, "You okay, Mom?" It was a Saturday afternoon when I felt the shift. Andrew was in the living room, half asleep in his recliner, his back acting up again. I was in the kitchen, prepping dinner, my mind spinning through the usual chaos, grocery lists, tomorrow's therapy schedule, grading a student's case file. Mason walked in from the backyard, a little sweaty from his run, a towel slung around his neck. "Need help?" he asked, his voice still a novelty to me. So deep, so different from the boy who used to sing off-key cartoons in the bathtub. I smiled. "Yeah, actually. Can you grab the garlic from the pantry?" He brushed past me, so close I could smell the trace of his cologne, something woodsy and clean. I hadn't even realized he'd started wearing cologne. When did that happen? As he leaned into the pantry, I found myself looking, his shoulders taut, his waist trim, his calves like they'd been carved from years of discipline. I shook myself. God, Elena. Stop. He handed me the garlic and leaned on the counter, his eyes on me. "You're quiet today," he said. "Just tired." He tilted his head, studying me the way I used to study him when he was little and couldn't find the right words. "Or maybe bored," he offered, a half-smile tugging at his lips. I laughed, surprised. "You calling me out, mister?" "Just saying. You've been, I don't know, different lately." I looked away, slicing garlic with a little more force than necessary. "Maybe I have." And then he said something that made me stop mid-slice. "You should go out sometime. With your friends. You still deserve fun." I met his gaze. "What are you talking about?" He shrugged, casual but too aware. "Just, you shouldn't have to stay home every weekend. You're still, you know." He looked me up and down. "You're still beautiful." My breath caught, just for a second. A heartbeat. "Thank you," I said, unsure if I meant it, unsure what I meant at all. Since that Saturday, something in me began to shift. It started subtly, lingering thoughts that refused to fade, glances I tried not to notice, silences that said more than words. I told myself it was just a phase, a passing moment of vulnerability. But it wasn't. It deepened, quietly, until I found myself thinking of Mason in ways I never thought I would. I started to see him not just as my son, but as something else, something closer to the man I once fell in love with, only younger, more attentive, more alive. I hated myself for it at first. Hated the way my heart raced when he stood too close, or the way I started choosing tops that hugged my figure just a little tighter when I knew he'd be home. I'd spend more time on my hair, add gloss to my lips for no real reason. Or so I claimed. He noticed. Mason has always been intuitive. Maybe it's part of how we're alike, both observant, both quiet when things matter most. But this, he saw the shift too. And instead of retreating, he leaned into it. His compliments became more direct. His touches more deliberate. A hand on my back that lingered longer than necessary. The way his eyes would follow me as I walked across a room, gaze flicking to places I hoped he wouldn't linger, and secretly wanted him to. One evening, the tension between us reached a peak. We were in the kitchen again, where everything always seems to begin. The light was dim, just the warm glow of the pendant lamp above us. Mason was helping me dry dishes, his hands brushing mine every so often. At first, I thought it was coincidence. Then I realized it wasn't. "Mom," he said, suddenly very still. "Can I ask you something?" I turned, dish towel in hand, my heart already pounding. "Of course." His voice lowered. "Do you ever think about what life would be like if things were different? If you weren't married to Dad? If I wasn't your—" "Don't," I interrupted too quickly. "You can't say things like that." But my voice trembled, and I didn't move away. Our eyes met in a silence thick with emotion, with confusion, with everything we weren't supposed to feel. He leaned in slightly, so slightly I might have imagined it. But I didn't, because I leaned in too. Our foreheads almost touched. I could feel his breath on my skin. Then a sudden clatter, Andrew shifting in his recliner in the living room, broke the spell. We pulled away instantly, as if the air had been shattered like glass. "I should go to bed," I said, my voice barely a whisper. I fled before I could see the look on his face, before I could admit what I had been about to do. On my way to the bedroom, I passed his room. The door was slightly ajar, and from within, I heard it, quiet, muffled sounds. A voice, low and trembling, restrained in a way that said everything it couldn't shout aloud. My breath caught. Heat flushed through me. I knew instantly what was happening behind that door. My son, my Mason, was growing into his manhood. And he wasn't thinking of a stranger. He was thinking of me. I stood there, frozen, 1,000 emotions surging at once.
Shame, awe, desire, fear.
I backed away without a sound and shut myself in my room. I didn't sleep that night. Andrew, meanwhile, remains in the fog of his own pain. He hasn't noticed anything, not the silences between Mason and me, not the glances, not the awkward tension that sparks when we're in the same room. He's wrapped in his world of back braces, painkillers, and silent TV marathons. Sometimes I wonder if he even sees me anymore. Sometimes I'm glad he doesn't, because I don't know what I'd say if he asked. The next few days unfolded like a silent game. No rules, no spoken confessions, but everything between Mason and me had changed. Our movements around the house became measured, precise. A glance held a full conversation. A touch, accidental or not, felt like an echo of the moment we almost lost ourselves completely in the kitchen. I kept finding myself in places I didn't need to be. The hallway when he came back from practice, still flushed and damp with sweat. The laundry room when he carried in a pile of clothes. our fingers brushing over the warm cotton of a shared shirt. I should have looked away. I should have stopped. But I didn't. Instead, I started waking earlier, curling my hair, dressing not for work, but for admiration.
For him.
For Mason. He noticed. He always noticed. One morning, as I leaned over the counter sipping my coffee, I felt him behind me, close, so close the heat of his breath skimmed my shoulder. He reached past me to grab a spoon from the drawer, and his arm brushed mine with intention. I didn't move. "You look nice today," he murmured. "Thank you," I said, my voice lighter than I felt. He didn't walk away. "I mean it," he added, his voice lower, almost gravel. "You're beautiful." I turned my head just enough to meet his eyes. There was something intense in them. Hungry, unsure, restrained but wanting. I could have said 1,000 things. I didn't say a word. That night, I dreamed of him. Not as my son, but as someone I had met in another life, at a cafe or a beach, or in the space between stories where roles didn't matter and age was just a number. In the dream, he touched my face, gently. He kissed my neck, whispered my name like it meant something more than just Mom. I woke up breathless, confused, aching in places I hadn't felt stir in years. The next morning, I avoided him, stayed in the bedroom longer than usual, called in late to school. I stared at myself in the mirror, searching for the woman I had once been, the vibrant one, the flirty one, the laughing woman in sundresses and glossy lips. She stared back at me now, resurrected, and I didn't know whether to embrace her or fear her. But Mason didn't give me time to choose. That evening, after dinner, Andrew already fast asleep in his chair, I went to my room with a book in hand. I wasn't reading. I was thinking, replaying, feeling. Then I heard it again. The sound.
Soft.
Rhythmic. A breath caught in a throat. Then again. I stood, walked slowly down the hallway. His door was open just a crack. I could have walked away. I should have. But I didn't. I stood there, barely breathing, heart pounding like I was the one caught. I didn't need to see anything. His quiet, stifled groans were enough. They weren't generic. They weren't distant. They were for me. Heat bloomed across my skin. My lips parted, and for a moment I pressed a hand to my chest to still the frantic beat. It was wrong, and yet it was real. I crept back to my room, closed the door quietly. I sat on the bed, flushed and trembling. My body remembered the sound of his voice. It craved the way his eyes had lingered. I told myself it would pass, that it was just confusion, a storm stirred by too many lonely years and a heart left untouched for too long. But the truth settled in me like a stone. I had never felt so alive. And the cruelest part? Mason knew. He knew exactly what he was doing. The next day, I tried to pretend it hadn't happened. I made breakfast. I folded laundry. I played the role. Mason played it too, but his glances were bolder. His hands brushed mine more often. And every time he spoke, his voice seemed to carry double meaning, every innocent word dressed in heat I wasn't ready to name. Andrew remained blissfully unaware. He barely noticed me, let alone Mason's changes. I often caught myself wondering how. How could he not see the storm building in our home? How could he miss the way Mason hovered when I entered a room, or how I looked away too fast, too often? The answer was simple. He had stopped looking. In the evenings, I found myself choosing softer fabrics. I left the top button of my blouse undone. I let my perfume linger. I hated the part of me that preened for Mason's gaze, and yet I did it. I stood in the doorway of his room when I didn't need to. I asked questions I already knew the answers to hear his voice. And when he answered, it always felt like a promise. One night, I sat on the edge of my bed long after everyone had gone to sleep. The house was quiet. Too quiet. My fingers ached with indecision, My heart pulled in directions I didn't want to understand. I whispered to the silence, "What am I doing?" The air didn't answer, but I knew. It was an ordinary evening, or so I thought. A Thursday, I think. One of those days that passes without significance until it becomes a memory that refuses to fade. The house was quiet, the air humming with a strange stillness. Andrew had gone to bed early, retreating into the bedroom like he always did, swallowed by his silence and discomfort. Mason was somewhere in the house, probably working out in the garage or scrolling on his phone in the living room. And me? I stood in my bedroom closet, staring at a mess of hangers and fabric, years of dresses and skirts, shirts that no longer fit my style or my mood. I'd had enough of pretending, enough of holding on to old versions of myself. So I began to sort. One by one, I pulled them from the rack, tried them on. If something didn't make me feel something, it went into the discard pile. Lace tops that once felt flirty. Pencil skirts that hugged the wrong places now. Silk blouses I had worn to parent-teacher conferences and school board meetings. None of them sparked anything. Until I reached a dress I barely remembered. Soft burgundy fabric, cinched at the waist. I slipped into it, watching myself in the mirror. The neckline dipped lower than I remembered. The hem kissed just above the knee. I turned, studied the curve of my back. It still fit. It still looked good. And then the lights cut out. Everything went black. For a moment, I stood frozen, heart thudding with the suddenness of it. I reached for my phone. It screened dim in the dark when I heard footsteps in the hallway. Fast, purposeful. Then the door swung open and Mason entered. "Mom." His voice was cautious. Power went out, I think. Before I could answer, he bumped into me, his chest against mine, his arms instinctively catching me as I stumbled back. We fell together onto the edge of the bed, and I let out a breathless laugh, more from surprise than anything else. "Easy," I said, half laughing, half stunned. He pulled back slightly, still close, still in the dark. "Sorry." I couldn't see a thing. I was still holding the hem of the dress, half off, halfway to changing into something else. In the dim spill of light from the hallway window, Mason's eyes adjusted. He looked down at me, then away, then back again. The air between us felt electric. "What are you doing?" he asked, his voice softer now. "Cleaning out my closet. Trying things on. Seeing what still fits." My tone was casual, but I could hear the flutter behind it. There was a pause. Then he smiled faintly. "Guess this one still does." "Barely," I whispered. "I could go out and flip the breaker," he said then, but he didn't move. Instead, he stepped closer, wrapping his arms around me without another word. I felt his warmth, strong, grounding. My arms found their way around him too. It felt too natural. Too right. We stood there like that for a long time. The silence was louder than words. Then I felt him breathe beside my ear. "Every night," he murmured, "when I close my eyes, I think about you." The words were fire. I didn't pull away. Heat crawled up my spine, settled in my chest, spread lower. My breath caught. My hands tightened at his back. I didn't respond. I didn't need to.
Because my body did.
I trembled against him, trying to still the storm he had just ignited. But it was too late. The tension that had built for weeks, months, spilled over. I closed my eyes. My lips parted, though no sound escaped. He felt it. Every quiver, every pulse that surged through me. He didn't say a word. He just held me closer, his breath deepening as he rested his forehead against mine. "I know," he whispered. I didn't move. I couldn't. The silence stretched, thick with understanding, with a shared truth we had never spoken aloud, but both had known for too long. And when the moment passed, when my breath finally slowed and my heart stopped racing, I opened my eyes. He was still there, still holding me. "You don't have to be alone anymore," he said quietly. A part of me wanted to push him away, to scold myself, to say, this can't happen. But another part, deeper, quieter, clung to him, a part that had been waiting to feel again.
To be seen.
To be wanted. In the hallway, the light flickered back on. The hum of electricity returned to the house. A sign, maybe. Or just timing. He stepped back then, only slightly, his hands still at my waist. I'll go flip the switch anyway, he said, smiling. Just in case. I nodded, my voice gone. When the door closed behind him, I sank onto the bed, the burgundy dress still tangled around my thighs, my chest still rising and falling in waves.
The world had changed.
We had changed. And nothing, not time, not silence, not the walls between our rooms, would ever make it simple again. But for once, I didn't want simple. I just wanted real.